Hello, friends. It's Missy and Ciola. Last time you heard the 6th chapter of one of the books from the Puppy Play series, Mocha. Do you remember what happened so far? Let's see if we can recall what we have read already. Take a moment to think about who the most important characters are, the setting they are in, and the most important event that we left off at. Do you remember? Go ahead and tell me. Charles Peterson is traveling with his parents, sister Lizzie, brother the Bean, and dog Buddy. They're visiting Charles' Uncle Stephen, Aunt Abigail, and his cousins, Becky and Stephanie. They're at his cousin's house for Thanksgiving when a stranger dropped off a dog who they decided to name Mocha. When they took her to the vet, they found out she doesn't have a microchip to help them figure out who her owners are. So they will have to figure out a different way of finding her owners or help a new family adopt her. When we left off last, Becky and Charles forgot Aunt Abigail's lemons from the store. They'd really wanted to go out because they were trying to figure out who lived in the large, mysterious house down the street, but Aunt Abigail didn't know that. What do you think they will tell her? When we finished chapter 6, I was left wondering how they would explain to Aunt Abigail that they forgot her lemons, and how else they might try to figure out who lives in that large, mysterious house down the street. I'm also wondering if they'll be able to find the stranger who dropped Mocha off. What are you wondering? Let's see if we can get our questions answered. When Charles awoke the next morning, Thanksgiving Day, he took a look out the window, and then he rolled over and snuggled down deep into the flannel-lined coziness of his sleeping bag, glad that he did not have to go anywhere. It was a rainy, gray, cold day outside. Charles didn't see any ice on the window, though. Maybe it was just a yucky day. Maybe the storm warnings were wrong. Anyway, the good news was that Uncle Stephen had promised to go back to the store for the lemons that Charles and Becky had forgotten. According to him, Carolyn and Kim always stayed open, at least until noon on holidays, just for last-minute needs like this. When Charles finally got up and headed into the living room, Mom was watching the Weather Channel. "I don't know, Stevie," she told her brother. "They're still saying that temperatures are dropping and this rain will start to freeze. Why go out in weather like that unless you really have to?" "I've got snow tires and four-wheel drive," said Uncle Stephen as he shrugged into his jacket. "I'll be fine." He petted Mocha and Buddy. "You two are in charge," he told the puppies. "Make sure nobody gets into trouble while I'm gone." He turned to Aunt Abigail. "Need anything else besides lemons?" he asked. "Last chance." Charles felt bad about forgetting the lemons, but he knew that Uncle Stephen enjoyed spending some time at the store most mornings, hanging out and chatting by the wood stove. The lemons were really just an excuse to go. Aunt Abigail sat on the couch next to Mom. Both of them were peeling potatoes. She paused for a moment, thinking. Nope, she said. "I think we're all set, and we really could live without the lemons, too." "Are you kidding? Your lemon tart is my favorite. There's no way I'm missing out on that," said Uncle Stephen, and he headed out the door. Charles watched from the window as his car puttered down the driveway. As far as he could tell, the car wasn't slipping or sliding, so there was no ice yet. "Charles, how about giving us a hand?" his aunt asked. "It would be great if you could take these peeled potatoes into the kitchen and put them in the pot of cold water on the counter. Then you can bring us the bag of carrots right next to it." Charles looked around. Where were Becky, Stephanie, and Lizzie? Obviously, they'd all found better things to do, which left him stuck with being Aunt Abigail's servant for the morning. Actually, he didn't mind. He was used to helping out in the kitchen, and it was easy work. Even though it was cold and gray outside, it was warm and snug inside. Mocha and Buddy snoozed near the living room wood stove, and all the lamps were lit, casting a happy glow. For the next hour or so, Charles was content to carry things back and forth, find things in the fridge, and search for things in the linen cabinet and the dish cupboard. He helped Dad, too, and they joked and talked while they set the extra card table up and carried chairs from other rooms. "Well," said Aunt Abigail a little later, as she looked around the kitchen, "I'd have to say we're just about set." She took a long, happy sniff. "That turkey is beginning to smell absolutely—" Before she could finish her sentence, the kitchen went dark. "Uh-oh," said Dad. "That's not good." Suddenly, it was very quiet in the house. The Weather Channel guy wasn't even talking anymore. The fridge wasn't humming. The furnace wasn't whooshing. Aunt Abigail opened the back door and stuck her hand outside. "Not good at all," she said. "It's still pouring, and now it's cold enough that it's all been turning to ice as soon as it lands. A tree must have fallen on a power line nearby." Charles poked his head out. "Wow," he said. "It's kind of pretty." Every branch on every tree was already covered in a shining coat of ice. Ice coated the walkway to the barn. It coated the Petersons' van. It covered the bushes, the bird bath, and the little statue of a toad in the garden. Charles stepped out onto the back deck for a better look and immediately went sprawling. The boards were covered in ice and as slippery as a skating rink. "Ow!" he said, rubbing his behind as he reached up for his aunt's hand. "Pretty, maybe, but very treacherous. I wish your uncle were home." Aunt Abigail frowned and pressed her lips together. "I wonder if the phones are working." Back in the kitchen, she went straight to the phone on the wall. By then, Charles' mom and all three girls had gathered to find out what had happened. The bean had just woken up from a nap. He rubbed his eyes and whined, upset because everyone else seemed to be upset. Mocha and Buddy scampered around underfoot. They didn't seem worried at all. Aunt Abigail picked up the phone and listened. She shook her head. "No dial tone," she said. She let out a long sigh. "And even if Stephen remembered his cell phone, there's never any signal down there at the store." Then she sprang into action. "Stephanie, Becky, round up all the candles in the house. Paul, can you bring some firewood in from the back porch? And Charles, maybe you could check the wood box in the living room and bring me an armload of small pieces that I can use for kindling. If we still want to have our Thanksgiving dinner, I'm going to have to fire up this old beast." She patted the big black iron cook stove that sat along one of the walls of the kitchen. "That really works?" Charles asked. He had always thought it was just for decoration. It usually had some pretty old bowls displayed on its shelves and a big vase of colorful dried flowers. "Sure," said Aunt Abigail. "Not that I've used it much lately, but since it runs on wood, it's an excellent backup. I doubt my electric stove will be doing us any good today. When the power goes out like that, suddenly all at once, without any flickering, it's usually a sign that it's going to be out for a while. Days, maybe." Stephanie and Lizzie gasped, and Charles could imagine just what they were thinking. No phone? No internet? No DVDs? He grinned. He could live without any of those things. This was going to be the kind of adventure he could enjoy. "What about the food in the fridge?" Mom asked. "It'll stay cold as long as we don't open the door too often," said Aunt Abigail. "If the power stays out for long, we may have to start setting things outside to stay cold." Charles went to get the kindling with both puppies trotting after him. When he came back, Aunt Abigail and Becky were just emerging from Aunt Abigail's pantry, each lugging 2 big-gallon jugs of water. "I've got a dozen or so of these. We keep them filled just for emergencies like this," said his aunt. "Without electricity, our pump doesn't work. We'll have to make the water last. That means no bathing." "And no flushing," Becky added. "Well, just not flushing too often," said Aunt Abigail. "It sounds as though you've been through this a few times," Mom said. Aunt Abigail nodded. It happens, she said. It's not so bad. What about a generator? Dad asked. We've talked about getting one, said Aunt Abigail. Lots of folks around here have them. They run on gasoline, and you can start them up when you lose power. They'll keep everything going, from your fridge to your computer to your TV, but they're expensive and loud. Before long, the living room wood stove had been stoked, and the candles were lit all over the house. A fire crackled in the big black cook stove, and Charles and Becky sat at the kitchen table near its warm bulk, waiting for the hot chocolate Aunt Abigail had promised them. Mocha lay at Charles' feet, in easy reach for petting, and Buddy snoozed by the cook stove. Everything was cozy and sweet, and all was well. Except for one thing. Uncle Stephen was still not back. Well, friends, it turns out that Aunt Abigail was not so upset that Charles and Becky had forgotten the lemons. Uncle Stephen went to go get them. But now I am left wondering where he is. Will he make it back in this terrible storm? Is he okay? What are you wondering? Well, I hope you enjoyed Chapter 7 today, friends. Tune in next time to find out what happens after this.